We're going to get started. All right, here's a Pear Deck link for you. You can spam it in the chat a few times. Go ahead and log into that. Take a second. Ben, you're good. You're good. I understand the hesitance to want to talk on the mic or be on the camera. Guys, I don't know if you pay attention, but there are days where we have over 100 people in this Big Blue Button session. And I mean, think about that. That's like, you're public speaking in that sense. The only difference is like, with your cameras off, like I can't see you face to face, like if I was going up and giving like a speech in public or a lecture or something like that. So I get it. Because new things are scary, Rose. We've developed a habit of not talking on the mic and me just being the only one talking. So we get ingrained as people. We get ingrained in our habits. What's up, Ashley? How are you? Yoshi, like that energy. I like that energy. I'd be down. I'd be down. All right, there's that Pear Deck link. Let's get rolling. Where's my presentation? Open Teacher Dashboard. It's only Tuesday, but it's a nice Tuesday. It's cold here in Canton, but the sun's out, so I'll take it. I'll take it. Jenna, I'm with you. I'm good, Ashley. Thank you so much for asking. How are you? Ben, I thought you were testing like every day. Before we get started, make sure, fill out the testing dates poll for me. Again, just so I know when you are testing, what those days are. Let's do this. Unit 4 review. Should go a little quicker. 5 learning targets for this whole unit. Again, it seems like a lot because we're shoving whole units into one day. But I've got them broken down into quick, easy to read bullet points. But our learning targets, what we need to know for Unit 4. And this should be fairly familiar to us because we did this this semester. This is one of our I want to say it's only been a month or two since we've talked about this stuff. Describe how racial intolerance, anti-immigrant attitudes, and the Red Scare contributed to social unrest after World War I. So that's that 1920s Red Scare. This is the boom or bust. This is the boom or bust unit, right? The Roaring '20s and the Great Depression. Describe how an improved standard of living for many, combined with technological innovations in communication, transportation, and industry, resulted in social and cultural changes and tensions. Describe social changes that came from the Harlem Renaissance, African-American migration, women's suffrage, and prohibition. Describe how the federal government's monetary policies, stock market speculation, and increasing consumer debt led to the Great Depression and the efforts to combat the Great Depression. And how that led to an expanded role for the federal government, so i.e. the New Deal. Okay? Guys, let's focus. Let's focus. All right, so we're going to start this unit off by talking about the racial intolerance, the anti-immigration, and the Red Scare. Okay, remember the Great Migration after World War I, the late 1920s, or during the 1920s, where African Americans migrated from the southern United States to northern cities like Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, New York. These were like the big 3 cities that are going to see a huge jump in their black populations coming from the south to the north. And they do this because of heightened racial tensions in the South. We're going to see race riots going on. We're going to see a number of lynchings. And if you don't know what a lynching is, it's an incredibly ugly topic. and scenario, and was a very real horror that many African Americans had to face and deal with during the 1920s. Jim Crow laws. A lot of this is driven by the revival of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s, particularly in the southern United States. And it's not going to be only African Americans who are going to suffer at the hands of the KKK. We're going to see intolerance towards Jews, the African Americans, Catholics, particularly Irish and Italian, and other immigrants. Okay. We're going to see a rise of nativism, right? And this is going to lead to nativist policies being passed in the United States, i.e., immigration quotas, right? Before the 1920s, there's no immigration law, right? Doesn't matter where you're coming from, as long as you're not bringing in a disease, you can come to the United States. It's the land of opportunity. We've got jobs. We've got room. We've got places to live. There's industry. This is the land of opportunity. This is where the idea of the American dream, you could step off a boat and into a job and go from rags to riches, because it happened during this time. It happened during the Gilded Age, right? Those robber barons. Some of those guys came from nothing. But this nativist policy, this America First policy, where, even though everybody here is a descendant of an immigrant, right? A lot of these people who were born here, they see themselves as Americans. We're born Americans, and these people coming in are taking our jobs, they're taking our homes. All of these bad things are happening, and we're going to see this nativist attitude, and it's going to come into politics. We're going to get leaders elected to positions of power with these nativist ideas, and the big one that's going to get passed is the immigration quota. Okay. Also during this time, we're going to see the Bolshevik Revolution, the Russian Revolution, occur during World War I. Russia's going to drop out of the war. And this is going to cause a lot of fear in the United States, because a lot of what was going on in Russia at the time was happening in the United States as well, as far as labor strikes. There wasn't really any, or there were bombing of public offices. We're going to see violent labor. It's a day. We're going to see labor uprisings be met with violence by the government, and this is going to cause a Red Scare, right? A fear of communism. So we're going to see, and we're going to blame it on immigrants, right? The immigrants coming into this country, they're bringing these communist ideas. They're bringing these socialist ideas and these far left-leaning ideas. Remember, nativism. So we need to arrest and deport these aliens who are bringing in these ideas. Again, this stirs from that nativist attitude. This stirs from many politicians who hold these nativist ideologies being elected into positions of power and able to dictate policy. That's going to be what drives this Red Scare. Okay. We good on that? Aliens is an E. I-E, Nathaniel. This, the 1920s. Again, it's a booming period if you're white. But if you are of a different race, or an immigrant, or politically left-leaning, it's a rather anxious time for you. The technological innovations of the 1920s and the social change are also going to shape this period. We're going to see a huge economic boom right after World War I. Every time we fight a war, guys, after the war, we're going to see a huge boom economically. We're going to see improved standards of living for many people. Okay? So that means we're going to, cleaner water, longer lifespans, more medical care, right? More access to healthy, nutritious food. These are improved standards of living, and more people in the United States, because of technology, are going to get to experience this. We're going to see a rise in communication during this time period. The radio is going to get invented. Talking motion pictures. Before this, we're only going to have Silent movies. Newspaper, magazines are going to start publishing popular culture articles and mass advertising. We're going to see immigration, transportation. Model A, the Ford Model A is going to get released. Airplanes are going to be invented and then mass produced. We're going to see challenges to social norms, flappers, things like that. Automobiles are going to drive a growth of suburbs. We're going to see, because of the automobile, a drive in the growth of businesses. Again, we'll those social norms with cars, those are going to challenge those traditional social norms because it's going to give teenagers a freedom from their parents, right? Before cars, right, you were kind of stuck at home unless you could walk somewhere. If you had a boyfriend, if you had a girlfriend, you couldn't, you could go on a date, but you're going to walk somewhere. Now with the car, you can drive into the city, right? You can go see a movie. You can go drive around. It's going to change the way things had always been done, which is then going to challenge traditional family values, the whole courtship system. That's all going to change, right? We're going to see parents and kids start butting heads more and more and more. We're going to see more people moving to what's going to become the suburbs, out of the cities into these suburbs, and commute into the cities. And that's going to bring traffic and traffic congestion. All right, Rose, go ahead and read this one for me.
Development B, the building of skyscrapers, C, the expansion of farm acreage, or D, the increase in the immigrant population.
All right, guys, so thank you, Rose. Go ahead and answer this. Which development contributed to the expansion of the suburbs in the U.S. in the 1920s? Which one of these things? Take a minute. See, you got a few of us answering here. And couple right, couple wrong. All right, so let's read through this. We gotta let's think about this question. All right, so we talked about the expansion of the suburbs in the U.S. What's going to be that? Suburbs are like towns outside of a city, right? What's going to lead to that? The building of skyscrapers. How is that going to lead to it? Right, so we can probably limit that. Expansion of farm acreage. If we're building towns outside of a city, we're not really expanding the farm acreage, right? We're shrinking it. So it's going to be two things: the increase in the immigrant population or the use of the automobile. Both of these are plausible, right? We said a lot of immigrants are coming into cities, and we know from what we talked about with the ideas of nativism and Red Scares, a lot of people, i.e. a lot of white people, didn't want to be maybe around that. But guys, it's really going to be the use of the automobile. All right, we're going to see, because of this economic boom after World War I, more people are going to be able to afford cars, going to be able to buy houses in these suburbs. They're going to move out of the city and commute to work. Okay. This one's a twofer. Okay. The following has two parts. You're going to answer A and then B. Which change occurred in the U.S. In United States society during the 1920s? So you're going to answer that. That's an A, B, C, or D. And then part B, select all the factors that contributed to the change you identified in part A. So you have to get part A right in order to answer part B right. I'm not a huge fan of these types of questions, but these are going to be the things you see on these kinds of tests. Oh man, it cut off the bottom. No. Let me see if I can't fix that. So if it's cut off for me, it's most likely cut off for you, right? It's just cut off in general. The whole. All right, let's see what we got. We're running out of time. There's going to be more. I can tell you for part B though, guys. If you're still answering it, there's going to be more than one. All right. So which change occurred in U.S. society during the 1920s? Anybody want to unmute themselves and give it a shot? Oh, Ben, do it. Come on. You can do it. What's the worst that can happen? You get it wrong? If you're not comfortable, though, it's okay. Oh, you're there. What'd you get, Ben, for part A?
A.
A, the cost of commercial flights sharply declined. You agree with who agrees with Ben? Or does somebody have a different answer? Because Ben, I got to tell you, man, I got a different answer. I got to go with trusty old B here. Automobile production and ownership increased significantly. That's going to happen in the 1920s. Remember, and I didn't mention it during our little review of it, but we're going to start seeing people buying things on credit. Right? Credit's going to become a thing where you can make installment plans. So now this automobile, which at the time, maybe cost $1,000, which is a ton of money back then, right? Instead of having to have all that money saved up to buy this brand new, right out of the factory Model A or Model T, you can own it in 20 easy payments. So we're going to see automobile production and ownership increase significantly. What factors are going to change? The factors that contribute to the change are going to be post-war economic boom. It's going to increase the standard of living, improved mass production, and then I know you can't see it because it's cut off, but it says the raw materials used in railroad construction become more available following World War I. So we're going to see it's not cut. We're going to see again shipping improve. All right, we got about 5 minutes, so we gotta kind of make it quick here. Again, we mentioned the Great Migration during this time. There's also going to be what we call the Harlem Renaissance occurring during the 1920s and 1930s. Again, African Americans are going to move from the south to the north because there's going to be more jobs. There's going to be more housing. There's going to be more public services. There's going to be not a lot of Jim Crow laws going on, not as much racial segregation. It's important to know that racial segregation, it still happens in the north. Okay, the north is not at this time. It's not this paradise for Black Americans during the 1920s. It's just not as bad as what the South is. Okay, they're still going to deal with racism. They're still going to deal with discrimination. They're still going to deal with segregation. It's just not going to be met with the violence and the animosity that it is in the South. And we're going to see an explosion of African American culture in these cities, right? Jazz music, art, literature. This is going to explode all over in the cities, but it's going to really happen in New York City in the neighborhood of Harlem. Okay? We're going to see an increased awareness of intolerance and problems in urban life. And we're going to really see jazz music establish itself as a music genre in America. And the big impact that this Harlem Renaissance and this African American culture and art and literature and all of this, the big impact it's going to have is for really the first time in American history, Black culture is going to be popular culture. Right, we see this now with a lot of like rap music and things like that in Black culture, but this is going to be the first time where Black culture is popular culture in mainstream in U.S. history. That's the impact. All right, so we're not going to get all the way through this, obviously. Take a minute, analyze these two primary sources. Let's skip around here. Skip around. Women's suffrage and prohibition. That's going to occur right now. Again, what we really need to know is the 19th Amendment. The 19th Amendment gives women the right to vote. The 18th Amendment is prohibition. It illegalizes alcohol, and that gets repealed with the 21st. So 18, 19, 21. 18 is prohibition, no booze. 19, women vote. 21, booze. And then the Great Depression and the New Deal. We're going to see, again, excessive lending by the banks, which is going to fuel stock market speculation and the use of credit. People are going to start buying stocks on a margin. But what that means is they don't have all the money to buy the stocks, so they're going to borrow the money with the idea of, hey, my stock's going to go up, and I'll just pay back the loan with the profit, and I'll keep the rest. And everybody's going to start doing it. And eventually, when you start borrowing from nothing, you're going to end up with negative. The Federal Reserve tries to curb these practices by constricting the money supply, which is going to make things worse, and it's going to make it harder to repay debts. Because of that stock market speculation and buying on a margin, we're going to see the entire stock market collapse. Black Tuesday, and it's going to lead to loss of fortunes. This is going to lead to, people are going to lose everything. So a lot of factories are going to close because they're not going to be able to buy the goods that they're producing. We're going to see a huge amount of consumer debt as workers lose their income. We're going to elect FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and he's going to come up with the New Deal, which is going to be efforts to help the economy recover. And a number of programs like the NRA, which create jobs, reforms for the protection of the elderly, farmers, investors, laborers, and the role of the federal government is going to be greatly expanded. Okay, remember the 3 R's of the New Deal: relief, recovery, and reform. We're going to help those who need it right away. We're going to try to get everything back to normal, and then we're going to change the laws so it doesn't happen again. All right. It is 11 o'clock. Do me a favor, guys. Go back through this Pear Deck on your own and answer some of the questions we had to skip because, again, hey, we didn't get through everything today that I wanted to, but we got a lot more student participation, and I'll take that any day. I'll take student participation and us growing together than getting through some content. You've got review sheet unit 4. Make a copy, turn it in. It's a completion grade. Alrighty. You guys have a great rest of your day. Don't forget about the target sessions at 12:30 and 2:30 if you need help. I'll post the recordings. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. You guys get to science class.
Hey, Mr. B.